I fixed my tie as Clara and I walked into the ballroom. The place was buzzing with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. I had spent too much money on the suit I was wearing, but I wanted to look right for her company's big event. Clara stood beside me in a sleek striped dress that hugged her figure. Her hair was styled perfectly, her smile bright, her whole look polished and effortless. She fit the room like she owned it. At first, I tried to enjoy myself. I shook hands, made polite conversation, and let her lead me around the room. She was in her element, laughing, posing, turning heads without even trying. When her boss walked up to us, I straightened, ready to be introduced properly. Instead, the word that came out of her mouth stopped me cold. "This is Ethan, my roommate," she said with a practiced smile. Her boss nodded, made a quick comment about how convenient that must be, then moved on. I stood there, glass halfway to my lips, waiting for Clara to laugh it off or correct herself. She didn't. Leaning closer, I whispered, "Roommate?" Without looking at me, she said quietly, "Don't make a scene. He doesn't like workplace relationships." Then she turned her attention back to the next person who walked up, her smile never faltering. For the rest of the night, it kept happening. Each new introduction was the same. I was just the roommate, not her boyfriend, not her partner, just some guy she happened to live with. I forced myself to smile, to nod, to sip champagne like nothing was wrong, but inside I was crumbling. 5 years together, and here I was erased with one word. I thought about all the nights I stayed up helping her prepare for work, the trips we took, the plans we made. None of it mattered here. By the time we left, my jaw ached from clenching it shut. Clara looped her arm through mine on the way out, still smiling, as if nothing had happened. But my head was full of one word, repeating louder than the sound of traffic outside. Roommate. The ride home was silent, but I knew the storm was only just beginning. The moment we stepped inside the apartment, Clara kicked off her heels and tossed her purse on the counter like nothing unusual had happened. I stood in the doorway, still holding my jacket, my chest tight with the word that had been replaying in my head all night. 5 years, I finally said, my voice low but sharp. And tonight I was your roommate? She let out a long sigh, as if I were being dramatic. Ethan, don't start. It's not personal. It's professional. You don't understand how corporate politics work. I stared at her. Not personal? You invited me to a partner's event, Clara. I bought a suit for this night. You introduced me as if I was just some guy renting the other bedroom. Clara poured herself a glass of wine, not bothering to offer me one. She leaned against the counter, looking more annoyed than guilty. Victor's old-fashioned. He doesn't like office romances. If he thinks I'm tied down, it could hold me back. I blinked. We don't even work at the same company. You don't get it, she said, her tone sharper now. My relationship status doesn't matter for my career. It's irrelevant. I laughed bitterly. Irrelevant? Clara, we've been together for 5 years. We've talked about marriage, kids. You've erased all of that tonight. Do you have any idea how humiliating it was to stand there while you called me your roommate? She rolled her eyes, swirling the wine in her glass. Honestly, Ethan, you should be grateful I keep you around at all. Her words hit me like a slap. I blinked hard, thinking I'd misheard. Excuse me? Let's be real, she said, setting her glass down. My career is taking off. I'll be in senior leadership in a couple years. Meanwhile, you're comfortable. You're doing fine, sure, but you're a big fish in a small pond. Most women in my position would have upgraded by now. The air left my lungs. 5 years together, reduced to charity. I felt anger rising, hot and ready to spill over, but I swallowed it. Instead, I forced my voice steady. You're right, I said quietly. I guess I haven't been appreciating your success enough. I'm sorry. The sudden agreement caught her off guard. Her expression flickered from irritation to confusion, then satisfaction. She nodded, taking another sip of wine, content with my surrender. I said nothing more. But inside I already knew tonight had changed everything. Clara left early the next morning for a breakfast meeting. I watched from the window as her car pulled out of the lot, the diamond earrings I'd given her for our 4th anniversary still glinting as she closed the door. Once she was gone, I sat on the couch in silence. The apartment felt different now, colder somehow. Her words from last night replayed in my head, each one cutting deeper. You should be grateful I keep you around at all. I knew then that staying wasn't an option. The plan had been forming in my head while I lay awake most of the night. Now it was time to put it into motion. First, I pulled out my phone and started documenting everything. I walked room to room, taking photos of the furniture, the artwork, the electronics, all the things I had bought, things that were mine. I dug out the lease agreement from the desk drawer. Both our names were on it, but the security deposit had come from me. I gathered bank statements and screenshots of monthly transfers, showing that I covered 70% of rent and utilities. Proof. Once the paperwork was sorted, I started making calls. I phoned my bank to separate our finances, closing joint accounts and shifting funds into my personal one. Then I called my lawyer to review our shared investments, especially the vacation cabin upstate we had bought together. We weren't married, but untangling our money was going to take precision. Finally, I called my boss. 6 months earlier, I'd turned down a job in Chicago that paid nearly triple my current salary, all because Clara's career was rooted here. Now I asked if the offer was still on the table. To my surprise, it was. By the time I hung up, the decision felt solid. I wasn't just leaving Clara, I was leaving this entire life behind. That night, while she slept in the next room, I contacted a moving company. I didn't give them the emotional details, just the basics. I need to move out tomorrow while my ex is at work. The premium for next-day service was steep, but I didn't care. Freedom was worth the cost. The next day, when the movers arrived, I directed them calmly, piece by piece, room by room. By mid-afternoon, the apartment was half empty. My office was gone, my artwork packed, my furniture hauled away. What remained was a shell of what we once called home. I left behind a simple note on the counter, short and sharp. Good luck paying rent, roommate. Then I walked out the door without looking back. When the movers rolled the last box into the truck, the place looked strange, like a smile with teeth missing. The living room was bare where my couch and TV had been. My desk was gone, leaving an empty corner. Even the washer and dryer I had bought when we moved in were loaded onto the truck. What remained was mostly hers. The bed she insisted on, the table she picked, the decorations she loved. I left those untouched. I stood in the middle of the apartment one last time, letting the silence settle in. For 5 years, this had been our home. Now it felt like a showroom someone had half cleared out. The kind of place that told a story without needing words. On the kitchen counter, I placed the note I had written earlier. Just one line. Good luck paying rent, roommate. No anger, no long explanation. Just the truth. I checked my watch. Clara wouldn't be home for another few hours. By the time she walked in, there'd be no trace of me except for that note and the empty spaces. She'd see the gaps, the missing furniture, the holes where my pictures had hung. She'd see how much of this life had been mine. When the movers pulled away, I drove straight to the hotel I had booked. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the key card in my hand. For the first time in years, I had no one waiting for me at home. Strangely, it didn't feel lonely. It felt like breathing after holding it in too long. Still, I couldn't help imagining her reaction. I pictured Clara walking in, heels clicking on the hardwood, calling out my name only to be met by silence. I pictured her scanning the rooms, realizing piece by piece what I had taken. Then finally finding the note. Would she laugh? Would she scream? Or would she just stand there, stunned, realizing I was serious this time? My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from my bank confirming the account changes. Another from my lawyer with an appointment time. The pieces were moving into place. This wasn't just me leaving her. This was me cutting every tie clean. I lay back on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, and let out a slow breath. She thought I was lucky she kept me around. Tonight, I'd proven I didn't need her at all. I was still settling into the hotel when my phone lit up with an unknown number. For a moment, I thought it might be Clara, using someone else's phone after realizing I wasn't answering her calls. I hesitated, then answered. Ethan, this is Victor, from the gala the other night. I sat up straighter. Clara's VP. Of all people, he was the last voice I expected. Oh, hi, I said carefully. I hope I'm not intruding, he continued. This is a little awkward, but I wanted to ask, are you and Clara together? The question blindsided me. Excuse me? I only ask because, he went on, lowering his tone. She's been introducing you as her roommate for months now. And well, there's something you should probably know. I gripped the phone tighter. Go on. Victor cleared his throat. Clara's been involved with Marcus from our legal team. Quite openly, actually. At the last retreat, they were inseparable, sharing a room, plenty of PDA. Most people assumed you two had some kind of arrangement. My stomach dropped. You're telling me everyone knew except me? I thought you should hear it directly, he said. You gave me your card at the gala, so I decided to reach out. For what it's worth, I respect you. It didn't sit right the way she handled things. I thanked him for his honesty, though my voice was shaking. When I hung up, I sat in silence, staring at the wall. It wasn't just that Clara had reduced me to roommate. That word had been a cover, a shield, a convenient excuse so she could live a double life without being questioned. While I was cooking dinner, fixing things around the apartment, taking care of the details of our life together, she was sharing hotel rooms with another man. My anger burned hotter than before, but this time it was focused, sharp. The clean break I had planned suddenly felt too soft, too easy for her. She had taken 5 years of my life and rewritten me as nothing. If she thought she could erase me, I would make sure she felt what erasure really meant. The note I left behind was just the beginning. After Victor's call, my plan shifted. Leaving had been enough before, but now I knew the truth. Clara hadn't just disrespected me in front of her colleagues. She had been lying to me for months, parading around with Marcus while using me as cover. The anger I'd been holding back hardened into something sharper. I wasn't going to just walk away. I was going to burn every bridge she had tied to me. The next morning, I made my first move. I called the bank again, not only closing our shared account, but also requesting a full audit of every financial tie we had. Vacations, bills, investments, every detail documented. I wanted a record of everything I had put in. Next came the cabin. Months earlier, we had signed a co-ownership agreement on a place upstate. It had been her dream to have it, but most of the money had been mine. I told my lawyer to withdraw me immediately, even if it forced a sale at a loss. Let her deal with the fallout. Then I contacted our landlord. I explained that when our lease expired in 60 days, I wouldn't be renewing. My share of rent was already covered through the end, but I made it clear my name would not be on any future agreement. Without me, she'd be scrambling. Finally, I made the call that felt the most satisfying. Months ago, I had turned down that job in Chicago because Clara's career was here. Now I asked if the position was still open. By the end of the call, I had a contract in my inbox. Triple my current salary. A chance to start fresh in a city where her shadow couldn't follow me. By afternoon, I had set everything in motion. It wasn't just leaving. It was erasing my presence from her life in a way she couldn't ignore. She wanted to act like I was just a roommate? Fine. Let her see what it feels like when the roommate she dismissed takes half the apartment, the investments, and the stability she thought was guaranteed. That night, I lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, I didn't feel like the one who had been left behind. I was the one walking away, and taking everything she thought she controlled with me. It didn't take long for Clara to notice. The first call came that evening, her voice sharp on the voicemail. "Ethan, what the hell is this? Where's all your stuff? Are you seriously moving out over one comment?" I didn't answer. An hour later, another message. "This is ridiculous. You can't just leave like this. The rent is due next week. We need to talk." Still, I said nothing. By the next morning, the messages turned frantic. "Why is Simone from accounting asking me about Marcus? What did you tell people?" Her words were rushed, panicked, her tone less certain now. I scrolled through them all from the quiet of my hotel room. Dozens of missed calls, texts stacking one after another. Each one felt like confirmation that my plan was working. The silence I gave her was louder than any fight we could have had. By the second day, her tone had shifted completely. "Ethan, please. I didn't mean what I said. I was stressed. I shouldn't have called you my roommate. You're more than that. Please pick up." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the call button for a moment, but I set the phone back down. I'd given her years of my voice, my support, my patience. Now she could sit with silence. That evening, I posted a short update on social media, a photo of the Chicago skyline with the caption, "Excited to start my next chapter." I tagged a few mutual friends, knowing it would spread back to her within hours. It didn't take long. By midnight, the calls doubled. Then came the message that told me everything. "They're investigating me and Marcus for violating company policy." "What did you do?" I smiled at the irony. I hadn't reported anything to her HR. All I'd done was mention, when declining my company's counteroffer, that I was leaving because my partner's relationship with someone at her firm had made things complicated. The rest took care of itself. Gossip is faster than any formal complaint. By the third day, Clara's voice was raw in her voicemails. She wasn't angry anymore. She was begging. "Ethan, I'm sorry. Please, can we talk? Please." But I never picked up. Her downfall was unfolding in real time, and all I had to do was watch. The updates came fast, and I didn't even have to search for them. Friends reached out, whispers traveled, and piece by piece I watched Clara's world tilt sideways. 2 days after she first started begging, word spread that she'd been placed on administrative leave. The company was reviewing her relationship with Marcus, and from what I heard, he'd already begun to distance himself. When questioned, he claimed she had pursued him. Screenshots of their messages were shown around, making her look desperate instead of powerful. The cabin we'd bought together went up for sale almost immediately. Pulling my money out had triggered penalties, and the timing couldn't have been worse for the market. She took the heavier loss since most of her share had been leveraged through credit. Then there was the apartment. Our landlord wasted no time listing it once I made it clear I wouldn't renew the lease. She would have to find a new place fast. Without my income to balance things, the numbers simply didn't add up for her. I heard she'd started selling some of her designer clothes on consignment websites. The same dresses she once wore to conferences and parties, the ones she claimed were what professionals in her position wore, now hanging in someone else's closet. Meanwhile, my own life was accelerating in the opposite direction. I signed the Chicago contract, locked down a lakefront apartment, and began planning the move. My new company didn't just want me, they celebrated having me on board. It was everything Clara had dismissed me as not being: valuable, respected, wanted. The contrast wasn't lost on me. While she was scrambling to hold her life together, I was building something new. One night, I sat by the hotel window, city lights glowing in the distance, and thought about how quickly things had shifted. A single evening at a gala had split our paths. She had chosen to treat me as disposable, and I had chosen to prove I wasn't. By the end of that week, Clara's calls had slowed, her messages shorter, less demanding. She wasn't angry anymore, not even begging. Just quiet. It felt like she finally understood what silence really meant. Her collapse was nearly complete, and I hadn't lifted more than a finger. I was packing a suitcase when the knock came. Slow at first, then harder, urgent. I knew who it was before I even opened the door. Clara stood in the hallway, nothing like the polished woman from the gala. Her hair was unkempt, eyes red and swollen, makeup streaked. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of everything had crushed her down. "Ethan," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. I stepped aside, letting her walk in, though I kept my distance. She glanced around the hotel room, as if expecting to find some trace of the life we used to share, but there was nothing here but me and my packed bags. Her hands shook as she spoke. "Was this all because I called you my roommate? Is that really why you left?" I set my bag down and met her eyes. "No, it was because when I objected, you told me I was lucky you kept me around at all." She flinched like I'd struck her. "I didn't mean it," she whispered. "I was stressed, trying to keep up appearances at work. I wasn't thinking." I folded my arms. "You mean while you were showing off for Marcus?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She couldn't deny it, not now. "Graham told you, didn't he?" she finally asked, using Victor's first name. "Not just him. Everyone knew. Everyone but me." She sank onto the edge of the bed, head in her hands. "I made mistakes. I know that. But destroying my career, my finances. Ethan, it's too much. It's not fair." For the first time, I felt a flicker of doubt. I hadn't expected the fallout to spread so wide so fast. But I kept my voice steady. "I never called your HR. I never filed anything. All I did was leave. The rest? That was you." Her eyes were wet when she looked up at me. "I loved you. It wasn't all fake. Can't we fix this?" I closed my suitcase and zipped it shut. "Funny thing about love," I said quietly. "It requires respect. And I never got that from you." I walked past her, carrying my bag to the door. She stayed sitting there, broken, as I stepped into the hallway. Chicago was waiting. The highway stretched out in front of me, miles of open road leading toward Chicago. As I drove, the weight I'd been carrying for months began to lift, little by little, mile by mile. It felt like I was shedding an old skin, leaving behind not just Clara, but the version of myself who had accepted less than he deserved. My new apartment sat by the lake, sunlight pouring through wide windows onto hardwood floors. It wasn't just a place to live. It was a statement. My space. My start. No shared closets, no reminders of someone else's priorities. Just me finally standing on my own. Work moved quickly. The firm welcomed me with open arms, And within weeks I was leading projects that challenged me in ways my old job never had. Clients respected my input, colleagues sought my advice, and for the first time in years, I felt seen for my own achievements. No one treated me like a placeholder. No one dismissed me as lucky to be kept around. Evenings were different now. I explored the city, tried new restaurants, jogged along the lakefront path. Sometimes, I'd catch myself smiling for no reason other than the quiet certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Friends visited, curious to see this new chapter of my life. A few set me up on dates, and while I wasn't rushing into anything, it felt good to meet people who introduced me without hesitation as their date, their boyfriend, or simply Ethan. No titles hidden, no truths twisted. News about Clara trickled in through mutual connections. She'd been reinstated at her company, but in a lower role. Marcus had transferred to another division, leaving her to rebuild alone. She'd moved into a smaller apartment across town, sold much of what she once flaunted, and started therapy. Part of me felt a pang of pity, but it never lasted long. Because I remembered her voice that night, cold, dismissive, telling me I should be grateful she kept me. That memory was enough to remind me why I walked away. Chicago wasn't just a new city. It was proof that I didn't need her approval or anyone else's to define my worth. I wasn't a roommate. I wasn't an afterthought. I was me, and that was enough. 6 months have passed since I left Clara, and I often catch myself looking back, not with regret, but with clarity. Distance has a way of sharpening the truth. I realize now that the warning signs were there long before the gala. The secrecy, the social media changes, the new clothes she never shared with me. All of it was her way of pulling away. I wanted to believe we were still building something together, but the truth is, I was holding on to a version of us that didn't exist anymore. The gala wasn't just a party. It was a mirror. Standing there, being called her roommate over and over, I finally saw how little she valued me. And when she told me I should feel lucky to be kept around, something inside me broke. Love without respect is nothing. That night, I understood it for the first time. Walking away wasn't easy. Packing my things, leaving behind years of shared memories, even knowing she would struggle, it all weighed on me. I'm not proud of every choice I made. Some of my actions cut deeper than I intended. But I also know I had to draw a line. If I stayed, I would have kept shrinking into someone I didn't recognize. Chicago gave me more than a new job or a new apartment. It gave me myself back. I found out I was capable of rebuilding from the ground up, of thriving without someone else's shadow looming over me. I proved to myself that my value isn't measured by another person's approval or their title. I've dated a little since, carefully, slowly. Trust doesn't come easily after betrayal, but that's all right. What matters is that when I do give my heart again, it'll be to someone who sees me as an equal, not as an accessory. Someone proud to stand beside me, not someone who hides me in plain sight. As for Clara, I don't hate her. She made her choices, and I made mine. We both paid the price in different ways. I only hope she learns what I did. That no amount of success means anything if you can't respect the person you claim to love. In the end, I walked away with something priceless, self-respect. And I'll never let anyone make me feel like a roommate in my own life again.